I think by the end of the season, we have full stadiums. We have the full might of the fan base behind this team. And I think the veteran skipper, Joe Girardi, gets this team to the playoffs.
All right, well, welcome everyone to whatever this is. My name is Andrew, and I really just wanted to talk about the Phillies with my friend. So I'll let that friend introduce himself now.
What's going on? I'm Bob, and yeah, I have no idea what we're doing, but we're doing it.
We are doing it. I mean, no one really seems to make podcasts these days, so I figure...
I've never heard a podcast before. You texted me today. I was like, "What's a podcast?" We had an hour-long conversation about podcasts. I think it's like the radio on demand. Is that what
right? Yeah. It's a new thing. We'll maybe we'll be pioneers, and people will actually start making these sort of things.
We're innovators.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to be even more unique, we're going to do a podcast about sports, and even more specifically about the Phillies, because there aren't enough of those nowadays. So
definitely not.
As we record this, it is about 6:15 on March the 30th. So we're less than 48 hours from opening day, which yeah, that's great news after a year. Well, I mean, if you really want to think about it, it's been a year and a half since our last traditional baseball game. I mean,
I would scream more and louder, but I don't want to blow out your eardrums. So.
It is fantastic. It's nice that I think by the end of the summer we're going to be at pretty high capacity at the ballparks, and we're going to have vaccines that are out there, and we'll be pretty close to normal. So not only is there the excitement of baseball, but there's the excitement of getting back to just normal lives. It's nice. We just kind of joked about it as we got on here, but we've been in a year of this now of nothingness and everythingness, and
it's been weird, Andrew. It's been weird.
Yeah. So let's dive right in. So yesterday, I believe it was, the Phillies made their final decisions on who's going to make the roster. We got our 26 names. I won't run down the list, but I think there were a couple surprises on the list. I think the headline for me is Scott Kingery. He's been on the opening day roster for a couple years in a row now, and we know that he struggled a bit. I think that first spring training, he was, out of the gate was phenomenal. He got that contract, and even into the season, he played well. And it's just, I don't know what's it been, 2.5 years now of just seems to be things going wrong with him. So I like the move. I'm surprised they did it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's understandable. He really, besides his first 2 years, he really hasn't. A little bit in 2019, he really hasn't found his sort of footing. Last year was rough for everybody. It's a weird season. He didn't bat over the Mendoza line. He only batted 194 that year. Mm-hmm. So it's just, it's weird.
As far as I can remember, he was the only one on the team who had a case of COVID. Am I wrong? There may have been more, but I feel like that had to have an impact too. And don't get me wrong, he was struggling before that, but we don't. I guess we still don't really know the full effects of what COVID does to the body. So I think that played a role too. So
yeah, it's weird. And actually, I was looking at the wrong stats. I was looking at his stats for the spring training for last year. But even regular season last year, he was still. That was 159.
Yeah, I was going to say his numbers were not far off from what you said. So yeah, it'll be nice to see him get. I'm assuming he'll start every game down there. I don't know what position. I'm assuming second, but they might have him jump around down there too because he is versatile. I think he's shown that he can bounce around a la. Ben Zobrist is always the one that comes to my head as like the guy who could do that well, who could play a couple different positions and still go up there and bat really well.
Well, let me pose this question to you, Andrew. Where are you on the fence of the he should be in a set position or he should be all over the place? Because there's been that argument for since he's been here, pretty
Mhm.
much of should he just be in second base? Should he just be in center field? Does bouncing around different positions hurt him?
Well, I think this will be the year we'll find out because if I'm not mistaken, Segura's contract is up after this year, maybe next year, but I want to say this year. So that second base position will open up. So I think this might be the year to cement him at second. The problem is because I do think he'll eventually get called up. The problem is he is going to have to bounce around if you want him to start. He's going to have to fill in at second and fill in center and maybe give him a shortstop or two. So it is a fence, like you said. It's. I think if I had my preference, I'd like any player would like to just have a set position.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I mentioned Ben Zobrist, who was, I mean, to me the blueprint of a guy who can bounce around and still put up batting numbers that are respectable. So, yeah, I would prefer him to be at one position, but this year, I think he's still going to have to bounce around if he's going to improve and if he's going to come up here and make a difference on the major league club.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at Segura's contract. He's here for a couple more years, and it's I don't know. There's the question of do they is Gene going to be here for the remainder of his contract or do they? I mean, I would think Phillies fans and the organization would rather have that money dealt somewhere else and not have to deal with Gene Segura, although he's been very serviceable for the time he's been here.
Yeah, I like him a lot, especially because this year he's going to be probably in the bottom third of the lineup, and we'll get to the lineup in a little bit. But I really like him down there. I don't think he walks a lot, but he hits a lot. His batting average is usually high 200s, low 300s, and the on base is much higher, which you'd like to see improve. But you know what? He especially in spring, he seems to be running out the ball a lot harder and showing a little more. I don't want to say effort because they all put in effort, but I don't know. Something looked a little different this year in spring training, but maybe I'm just being hopeful. But then again, Gene has been a guy that gets traded quite a bit in his career. I know he's been on several different teams. So yeah, I mean maybe that continues, and depending on how this year goes, they may ship him out and have Kingery take over second. I don't know. I think it just depends on how this season plays out.
It's going to be interesting to really see how this progresses with him and the team, especially with guys like Stott coming up.
Yes.
Because you have a real big kind of a situation where you have Didi right now, you have Gene, you have Scott, and then you have Stott coming up. So that second shortstop combo is you have one side it's aging out, you have the other side with Stott and hopefully Kingery, where it's a younger mold, and I think pretty soon you guys start figuring out within the next year or two, hopefully this season, who your long term up the middle is going to be.
Yeah, and I think Stott, he's probably in line to debut next year. I don't think we'll see him this year, and it works out because Didi's contract I believe was 2 years. So once that's up, I think the plan is have Stott be ready, or plan on Stott being ready to come up at that point. So timeline wise, it could work out. I mean, this is baseball and plans change. So
you never know. And speaking of up the middle, we're talking about second and short. Center field has been just the discussion of a lifetime. Not only this year, but the last few years.
Yeah. I mean, it's been since Shane Victorino was the last mainstay out there. I can't think of who else has really made a name for themselves out there since. Ben Revere. But
they were hoping that Ben Revere would be the guy, but obviously that didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
I still want a refund on my jersey for Ben Revere.
Hey, he had that one home run he hit out to right.
Yeah, that was good. Remember that home run.
But it's nice to mention center field because another one to me it was a surprise that Odubel didn't make the team, and we can get into the off the field stuff for Odubel, which actually I do want to do that. But looking at it purely from the on field performance standpoint, at the beginning of spring training, at least that first week, it looked like he had that starting spot in the bag. I mean, Hazley went down with an injury. Kingery wasn't playing well at all. There was Roman Quinn, but Roman always just feels like, the speed off the bench and a fill-in kind of guy. So that first week, I thought for sure Odubel was on track to be the opening day starter. And then the last, 3-4 weeks, batting average just plummeted, and it kind of looked reminiscent of the Odubel we saw the last time he was on the major league roster. So, the decision was made. It looks like it's a platoon between Hazley and Quinn out in center field. It probably just all depend on who the opposing pitcher is. Although Joe Girardi doesn't seem to be a huge fan of Hazley. Hazley, I still feel like hasn't gotten a fair shot out in the center. So maybe something changes this year. What do you think? Are you a fan of Hazley out there? Would you rather see Roman Quinn with that speed? What do you think?
When Roman Quinn first hit the scene, odd number of years ago, I was really hopeful of him. He reminded me of a Michael Bourne type, a guy who I missed when we get rid of him. But he just hasn't worked out. Injuries have happened and all that. And I don't understand, especially this spring, why people aren't talking more about Hazley, especially his own manager.
Yeah,
he batted .316 this spring training.
With that injury. I mean, he missed some time with the injury, and he still looked well, or he played well. I agree.
It's not like
good.
It's not like he had like a horrible last couple of seasons. He's a serviceable average the last 2 years, 278 and 266. So, he can play defense. He's not going to hurt you out there. Do you need a long-term option that's probably better than him? Yeah, but I'd give him a shot, let him run with it. And I personally like to see him in the open day roster and see him, win that job because I think he deserves it.
Yeah, I think he is a fringe somewhere in between a third, your center fielder and a fourth outfielder. He, as of right now, because I don't think we've seen a prolonged time with him out, starting every game in center field. And I agree. I would like to see that. I'm hoping he's the opening day starter, and I hope he plays every game for the first, 10 games or whatever. We get an idea of how that would look. And I do like Roman Quinn, but it does feel like he has become the bench guy. He's the late, 7th, 8th inning pinch runner, go out and be its defensive replacement. It just feels like that's where Roman Quinn is, whether that's fair or not. So be it. One other, I think, surprise to go over for the roster before we move on. I was a little surprised that Jojo Romero didn't make the team. He would have been the second lefty after Jose Alvarado, who's been, he's got a cannon for an arm, but he cannot aim it right now, and I think that's why the Rays may have flipped him over here. It looked like it came down to Jojo Romero and maybe Sean Coonrod for the last spot in the bullpen, and they went with Coonrod, the righty. So the bullpen right now, the only lefty is Alvarado, which I don't know in today's baseball with the 3-batter rule out of the bullpen. I don't know how much importance there is in having a that lefty specialist. I'm curious what you think. Did you see JoJo making the opening day roster after? I mean, he looked impressive for his first couple outings last year. I know he got a little shaky towards the end, but I don't know. To me, I thought he was almost a lock to make the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, I am surprised. He didn't have a bad spring training. His numbers were pretty good. And last year, I thought he would have some sort of I don't know, like a chance with last year. Last year the ERA was inflated, but everybody in that bullpen, you could have had the similar ERA out in that bullpen last year. But I thought he deserved the chance. I think the fans like him. He has a sort of swagger about him. I don't think it's a long stint in the minors, if you're asking me.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's the first man up when someone goes down, whether that's for not being effective or injury. So we see JoJo here for most of the year. It's a little shocking that he's starting the year in the minors.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely think we'll see him up here sooner than later. So just to give a rundown of what the bullpen does look like now, again, the one lefty, Jose Alvarado. Then you have Archie Bradley, Connor Brogdon, Sam Coonrod, David Hale, Brandon Kinsler, Hector Neris, and Vince Velasquez. Now, I do really quickly. So as we went through that list, I should have stopped, but if you notice, there were quite a few veteran names there that you're like, okay, I know of this guy. He's a bullpen guy. I've heard the name before. Let me flip back the calendar a year and read you off the 2020 bullpen names on opening day. Hector Neris, familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Morgan, who he had his ups and downs. I was a fan, but he's no longer here. Jose Alvarez, again, I would have liked to keep around, but I'm not sure where he ended up. And then the rest. Deolis Guerra, I think it's how you say it.
Exactly. Exactly, yeah.
Tommy Hunter, good old Tommy Hunter, who is Tommy Hunter. Cole Irvin, who I liked the guy. He seemed like a nice dude, but
his girlfriend doesn't like this, but yeah.
Trevor Kelly, never heard of him. Reggie McClain, never heard of him. Ramon Rosso, Austin Davis, and my favorite name in recent Phillies memory, Nick Pivetta. So that was the opening day bullpen last year. Quite a stark contrast. And I think quite a bit of credit has to go to Dave Dombrowski. I know when that move was made to bring him in and move Matt Klentak to whatever broom closet he's working out of now, there was some skepticism. Dombrowski is known for being I think an all-in kind of GM, but not really looking to the future. But as far as the minor leagues here go, there wasn't much of a minor league system for him to pull from. So it was interesting to see him, I guess, go a little bit of a different route as far as free agents over trades. So far, without having games having been played, I'm happy with Dombrowski and the job he's done with this roster. What do you think?
The jury is still out with me. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I am sort of indifferent. I really would like to see. It's mainly because I want to see how this team plays and how he reacts to how this team plays, whether that's adding to it or what have you. I would say sell off pieces, but there's not many pieces to sell off unless you really want to do a full rebuild. Hopefully it's adding. But yeah, I think it's a little too early for me. He wasn't my first choice, or my second, or my third, or my fifth, or my 10th choice for GM. Maybe we could talk about that in the future. But he's here and he has a pedigree, and let's see if his pedigree can work here.
Yeah, I understand that. I just looking at the bullpen alone is what impresses me. Might not be the right word, but I'll use it now. Impresses me with what he's done. But I agree. Let's revisit this. Mid-May, mid-June, when we've seen how the bullpen performs, and we're all screaming our heads off because 3 out of the however many guys are out there are not performing, and we're ready for a full cleanup again. And one last thing on the bullpen before we move on. The closer role, it feels like we're going to have a defined closer. And if I had to guess, it's probably going to be Hector again. He's been there basically the last, 5-6 years. I think he's the longest tenured Philly currently. So, he's got the experience. A couple other names there. We talked about Jose Alvarado, briefly mentioned Archie Bradley, but we didn't get into him. Both guys, I believe they both have closer experience. I know Archie has. What do you think? Do you think Neris is the right choice right now, or do you kind of base it off of what the numbers were in spring training? And I think Archie Bradley was looking better, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is Hector Neris' 8th year with the big club, and not an old guy, only 31.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think me and you are on the Hector train. I think he gets a lot of undue hate, but that's just because of the position of being the closer. I do like Archie Bradley. I was really pumped when Dave brought him on, and I think I would like Hector to be the guy all season, but I do think they're gonna kind of play volleyball a little bit with both those guys and see how each of them do. But I would start the season with Hector. I think that's Hector's job. He's been the closer here before, and I think it also will help the bullpen long term because I think that will fire up a guy like Archie. I think Archie would want to be the closer, and if him not being the closer to start the year kind of fires him up and makes him be better, and it's kind of a nice competition. I mean, that's good for the whole bullpen back there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you will see Neris when the situation calls for it. He'll be the closer to start the year, and it'll play out from there. So opening day, hopefully there will be a safe situation for Daenerys to come into. Actually, no, you know what? Never mind. I hope it's they're up by 10 and there's no need for Daenerys to come in. But
to be honest, the visitor closer is a job that you never want to use. Like I hope every game is a blowout. People are like, oh,
yeah.
I love close games. Nope,
Yeah.
nope, blow out everybody in the world.
Like that, what was it, 14-inning game with the White Sox a couple years ago, where I think you and I were the only people left in the ballpark watching the game, and that was.
Those are fun games when there's other teams playing. I'd rather have Harper hit a grand slam and it's over.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that opening day, I'm curious what your ideal lineup looks like because there are options this year. There are a couple spots that I think are pretty set in stone, but the middle of that lineup can be moved any which way. And I'm curious to hear what your ideal opening day lineup is, and with the caveat being that I believe they're facing the lefty Max Fried. So how do you stack up against a lefty?
You know what? We talked about this before we got on. I haven't really had a chance to fully think about everything, but I'm just gonna. The lineup is the best thing about this team, I think.
Yeah. And if you want, I have a list here. So why don't I read off what I have?
Yeah, you go first, and I might have a similar list.
Okay, so I think no one would disagree that McCutcheon's your leadoff hitter, and I'm really looking forward to McCutcheon this year. It is his last. I know it's his last year of his contract, so I'm really curious to see what he does. Now we're a full year and a half removed from his injury, so I'm really excited. But again, let's not make this podcast last 3.5 hours and go into each player. But yes, I'm excited for Andrew McCutcheon. I have Hoskins hitting number 2. I have Harper third. This is where I got a little caught up because Realmuto is typically the cleanup hitter, but in an ideal world, I like Alec Boehm as cleanup guy. I am so impressed with the way his eye at the plate, the way he approaches his bats, and I like him in the cleanup hole for a couple of reasons. One, I know he could knock in any of those top 3 guys, and I'm pretty confident of his ability to get on base for then Realmuto to clean up, the 4 guys in front of him, whoever ends up getting on. I like Realmuto in that 5 hole. Kind of opens up more RBI opportunities for him. And then you put Didi in that 6 hole. Segura bats 7th. I have Adam Hazley here batting 8th from center field because opening day, I think he should be the starter. And then we're back to the pitcher batting 9th, which I think we could get it at DH, but then we might hit that 4-hour mark because I don't think we agree on the DH in the National League. So we could save that for another day. But at least there's top 8. What do you think?
My thoughts are very similar. Just there are guys in this lineup. There are 2 guys in particular in this lineup that I think need a little bit of protection. One of them being Rhys Hoskins, who, when he first came up, he was raking, and he has a tendency to sort of slide in and out of slumps, usually. And the other guy is Alec Boehm. Just because he's a younger guy, I do think he's going to rake in his career. I think he's going to have an excellent career at the plate. Defense, we'll see. Maybe he's a long-term DH in the future. Again, a battle royale we will have hopefully later on. But yeah, so my lineup, same thing. 1 is Kutch. At 2, I have your best hitter, Bryce Harper, is bat number 2.
Okay.
I think he needs to bat number 2. I think In number 3, I had a guy at number 3 until 5 seconds ago when I changed it in my head. Number 3 is Alec Boehm.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Alec Boehm is the kind of guy that will do well in that spot, and I think he would do well in between two great hitters, one of them being Bryce Harper, and the other one being JT Realmuto in the 4 hole. I have Didi batting 5th.
Mm-hmm.
In the 6th hole, I have Rhys Hoskins. Mm-hmm. Until I see that consistency come back, I want him back there. And, again, he's in between two guys who are, I like a lot in Didi and the number 7 hole hitter, which would be Gene Segura.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And batting in the 8th slot, I know we just talked about how we both like Hazley. We want him to be the center fielder. We are facing a lefty. 2 years ago, he didn't do very well against lefties. Mm-hmm. I think the opening day center fielder is Roman Quinn, batting in the 8th hole.
Yeah, that's fair. So aside from that center field spot, I kind of figured that 2 through 6 was going to be where the differences are, and that's the beauty of this team is I think both lineups that we just put out there are equally as competitive. There are just so many guys in that mix that can get on base and can knock everyone in. So you mentioned that this is the strength of the team. I can't disagree. I mean, it's a pretty solid lineup from 1 to 7, and you can include 8 because I think I would take either Hazley or Roman Quinn as my number 8 hitter any day of the week. So,
absolutely. There's so many guys on this team that can play when they are hidden the way they are hidden at their the top level. There are a number of guys on this team who can bat in numerous spots.
Yeah.
I would say almost every single person, with probably the exception of a Quinn or a Hazley, could bat in 3 to 4 different positions in this lineup, depending on how hot or not they are.
Yeah.
Which, the depth of this lineup, when healthy, I think can go toe to toe to anyone in the NL East.
Yeah. And that's actually a great segue because first I was going to mention, I think I would take this lineup over any lineup in the East. And that's not me saying that any of these lineups are bad in any way or even below average. It's just the consistency, or maybe not even the consistency, but the ability, like you mentioned, for Joe Girardi to kind of shuffle this lineup and still be just as effective. It's a great problem to have, I guess is a good way to put it. So speaking of the East, I think there's a lot of concerns in this division. I think it's the hardest division in baseball right now because who's next? You've got the NL West where it's the Dodgers and Padres and nothing else. You've got the Central, which, I mean, it's the Cardinals and nobody else. So at least in the National League, I do think this division is the hardest to compete in. And you move this Phillies team into the Central, and I'm so much more confident in their ability to compete for the division title. Whereas now in the East, my biggest concern is how improved the Mets are and how much it seems their new owner is willing to go to continue to improve them. And we'll get into it a little bit, but the Braves are still at the top for me, but the Mets are going to be a thorn in the side of the Phillies for this year and for years to come. And it sucks. I hate that they are improving so much and are going to compete the way they are. So with all that said, because now I'm rambling, what do you see as the number one concern as far as the Phillies being able to succeed in this division and attempt to make the playoffs for the first time in 10 years?
They're pitching. I think I will take our lineup on its best day against any other lineup in this division. I think it comes down to our pitching. I like our first three in the rotation. Zach Eflin, that is my breakout pick of the year for the Phils.
Yep.
I really like his stuff. I don't think he's talked about nearly enough. I think people just kind of poo-poo him as like, a guy that we got in a trade that didn't work out, but I think it's working out. I think it's going to work out. The bullpen, I know you like what Dave has done with his bullpen. I still have nightmares of 2020 bullpen being the worst bullpen ever. So
to be fair, it just goes back to what I said. This is the best division of baseball, and I don't think that the best way I could say it is I don't think the best teams in the league are in this division, but the most competitively equal teams are in this division.
Yes.
So it kind of leads into my next question here. How many wins do you think it'll take to win this division? Because with it being so competitive between what could be 3, 4, and if the Marlins decide to, really break out this year, it could be all 5 teams competing. So how many wins do you think it'll take to win this division?
Well, if we go back, because that's not where you're going to count 2020 because it was a weird shortened season. Mm-hmm. If we go back to 2019, the Atlanta Braves won this division by 4 games with 97 wins. Mm-hmm. I think, it's going to be, it may not be 97. I think it's going to be, I would say low 90s. I would say probably you're going to be like 92, 93 to win this division because I think it's super competitive. Yeah. I don't think there's any team that's, super above, way above anybody else. So I do think it's going to be maybe even the high 80s. Yeah. I think at the end of the year, you may look at the East and go, oh, these teams didn't win, as much as the Astros or the Dodgers or the Yankees, but it's because, like you said, this is such a competitive division, in my opinion, and there's so many other divisions in baseball are, tip top guys, and then like the bottom feeders. Yeah,
I have written here, I have 90 with a question mark, and I think it might be that first team to hit 90 wins is who's going to win the division. It is going to be so tight, and it's going to come down to somebody winning by 2 games or whatever it ends up being. But I think 90 wins might be enough to do it, and that sucks because the Phillies could end up having their first winning season since 2011 was the last one, right? So. And miss the playoffs entirely. They could win 86, 87 games and be competitive, and it's just because you're playing the Braves 19 times and the Mets 19 times and the Nationals and the Marlins. It's going to be tough. And if they get a record that normally screams playoffs and they miss the playoffs, I guess in one sense I'll be happy because they played well, but I'll also be severely disappointed because it just sucks. It would just be a terrible outcome. So, so I think to kind of wrap things up here, or at least start to head down the wrap it up trail. Kind of curious to look at each division and some very early on predictions as far as where we think each division will end up. And if you don't mind, I'll read off what I have here again and kind of have you spitball off of it. So we'll start with the American League, which I think we can both agree neither one of us are very familiar with, but we'll try our best here. I think out in the West, I think the Astros win it, mainly because there's not much competition. Although I have my eyes on the Angels this year. I'm curious to see what they can do. Shohei Ohtani looks like he's going to be really good. I mean, he's been playing, or he's been pitching and batting in some games, and the man can do it all. So, and I don't know if you're familiar. The Angels have a little bit of controversy on center field too. They have this guy Mike Trout that they're just not sure if they want to play him out there. So
never heard of him. Never heard of him.
So I am curious because you got to think for Mike Trout, it's getting to the point where it's like, all right, guys, come on. I've been putting up these Hall of Fame numbers, and we're going nowhere. So I still think it's the Astros division to lose. It might be the last year for them to do something, but I am curious to see if the Angels can pull something off out there. In the Central, I'm looking at the White Sox. They made a lot of flashy moves, which doesn't always work out, but I just feel like they have really they were clicking last year. I know they got knocked out, I think, by the Rays in the playoffs, but I think they've only improved, and I see them winning that division. Then the East, I think it's the Yankees in a runaway. I don't know who's going to compete with them there. For the first wild card spot, I've got the Twins, and then for the second wild card spot, I have the Rays or the Angels because I'm just not sure yet. If I had to pick one, I think I'm going to go Rays just because they always seem to string things together and make something happen. So for the American League, you have any thoughts on those picks? Any big disagreements there?
No huge disagreements. I think we're pretty on track with the West and the Central. I think in the East, I think the Yankees. I think they come back with a vengeance in the East. I think it was a weird season. They lost the East by 7 games, but I think they just come back with a fury. The Rays, they do it again. They get rid of guys after having a great season. They go to the World Series and get rid of their star pitcher. It's just small market baseball. Sometimes it just doesn't work out for whatever reason, ownership. But I think the Yankees come back with a vengeance, and not to get too ahead of ourselves, but I have a good feeling about the Yankees and the rest of the playoff run they have.
Yeah, I think we'll be in agreement there. But let's hop over to the National League where we're a little bit more familiar with the teams. Out West, I kind of want you to answer this one first because I'm curious. I'm assuming for you it comes down to Dodgers Padres, and I'm curious as to your how you think that's going to shake out.
It's still the Dodgers. I mean, unless it is the Dodgers all the way. It's such a good team. It is the model I think everybody should follow. How the Dodgers, their farm system, how they groom people, how they bring people in. I think the Dodgers are the top of the top as far as how teams, I think, should build a baseball team in this day and age. Don't get me wrong. Love the Padres. Love what they did. A lot of moves, but it just, to me, screams like the team. There's always a team that will make a move or make a couple of moves that were, maybe they were on the cliff, they were on the edge, last year. I know they were in the playoffs for a little bit in the wild card series, but I still think it's the Dodgers in the West.
I agree. I don't think it's going to be a runaway. I do think they're going to have to fend off the Padres throughout the year, but I do agree that it'll come down to the Dodgers winning. For all the reasons you said, they're just such a well-built team, and they only improve. They brought in Trevor Bauer, who I don't know if he'll be, what he was last year, but it's still a great arm to add to that rotation. So, I have the Dodgers winning out West. The Central, I think it's obvious. I think it's the Cardinals, and I don't think it's close. I mean, the Cubs sold off a lot of their pieces. The Brewers, might be able to compete for a bit, but it's the Cardinals for me in the Central. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're talking about competitive divisions. I think after the East, the Central is the most competitive. I think the teams in the East are better, top to bottom. But I think as far as just looking at competition-wise, the NL Central is a division to really look at. It's the Cardinals for me as well. I sort of hate that we're going this with the same picks, but that one is going to be interesting to look at. I mean, even just looking at last year in a weird year, between the first place Cubs and the fourth place Brewers was a 5-game difference. Which is just insane. So up for grabs, but in the end, I think I would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, adding Nolan Arenado certainly doesn't hurt their cause, and
Does not hurt your cause. And it will also put the rest, or maybe put the rest. Can he hit outside of Colorado?
yeah, and that's for any player. I think that's such a silly argument. I mean, look at DJ LeMahieu with the Yankees. He is still. I think he's even improved. I don't know. I think that's somewhat of a silly argument, but I don't know. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, and Arenado will become quite average, but I don't think so. So here's where, I mean, if we're going to disagree anywhere, I think the best chance of it is here. So the NL East. For the division winner, I have the Braves. After they were just a couple outs away of making the World Series last year, and I mean, similar to the Dodgers, they have these minor leaguers that when somebody on the major league roster goes down, they can just pluck somebody and bring them up, and they play well, and it's just, I mean, you've got Freddie Freeman, you've got Ronald Acuna, who, I mean, he could potentially win MVP this year. He's just he and if there's going to be a lineup that I'm worried about being competitive, if not better than the Phillies, it would be the Braves lineup. So I don't see anything out of the Phillies or the Mets or the Nationals or the Marlins to make me think anybody will be able to remove the Braves from the top of the East. So now to you. Do you disagree at this point, or are we going to go 6 for 6 as far as agreement?
I think we're going to go for 6 for 6, but I do think at one point or another, each team is going to be mentioned as possibly winning this division. I think, just like the Central is competitive, I think in the Central, at least 4 of the 5 teams will be mentioned at some point as possibly winning that division. I think in the East, you'll get somebody somewhere saying that, it's any team race, and I agree. I think it's going to be super close. I think it's going to be probably the closest race in baseball. I think it's going to be hopefully the race that people talk about the most, not just saying it because East Coast bias, but these teams are really good. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be by much, but the Braves, they have the experience of the last couple of years. They pull it out at the end. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it's our boys in the pinstripes. But the pitching still scares me, and I need to see that for myself.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything I disagree with what you just said. It's the Braves division to lose. At least that's what it feels like right now. But again, if we revisit this over the summer, we'll could have a different tune. There are 2 wildcard spots up for grabs, though. And for wildcard spot number 1, I'm giving it to your San Diego Padres, because I just think that while the Dodgers will eventually win the division, to me the Padres are they're the real deal. I mean, they're you want to talk about rotations? Yu Darvish, I believe, is going to be their opening day starter. They've got Snell that they got from the Rays, and the lineup with Tatis and Eric Hosmer. It's just there's a lot there, and I think they put it together, and I think they take that first wild card spot. How about you?
Tatis is my favorite player in baseball right now.
Yeah,
he's just so fun to watch. To think, man, I'm glad I'm not a White Sox fan, because you have Machado and you have Tatis, 2 guys that could have been, that could have been on your team, and it's tough. It's probably tough for them to watch that, but he's by far the best team in baseball. It is a 2-team race in the West.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Don't talk about the Giants. Talk about the Rockies. Don't talk about the D-backs, because they're going to be playing golf. they already are playing golf. They know it. It is probably the least competitive division.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Padres definitely make that first wildcard spot for me.
Yeah, I wish we could say the same thing about the East, because I would like to discount the Nationals and Marlins, but I can't count them out.
We can't.
Yeah, the Nationals with the top 3 in their rotation, getting older, and Strasburg's got his injury problems, and I feel like Corbin, the Phillies have hit him pretty decently, but you can't discount that, those top three. And I don't see them in the same light as the Braves and Mets. I see them just a tick down. And then the Marlins, I never know. I mean, because the Marlins are going to win, the Marlins might win 19 games all year, but all 19 might end up against the Phillies. So it's just, I mean, I think I'm going to have to name this podcast the NL East sucks, but also is the best. I don't know. I hate that we're in this division, but it is what it is. And speaking of this division, looking at wild card spot number 2, I'm saying right now, March 30th, 2021 at 7:01 p.m. that the winner of wild card spot number 2 will be the New York Mets. I want to put the Phillies there real bad. There's something about that Mets team. I love Lindor. I think he's going to be a spark plug for that team. And then again, the rotation, Jacob deGrom at the top is just unbeatable. I mean, that dude is going to be just in a whole different planet when it comes to his stats. And I think they're supposed to get, is it Syndergaard? I think is supposed to come back in June or something like that. So they only have good things to look forward to. And I think they edge out the Phillies for that wild card, that second wild card spot. And trust me, it. Anybody that's going to listen to this, our ramblings here, is going to know that I do not want to make this decision, but I think the Mets end up taking that second wild card spot. How about you?
Andrew, I am going with your fighting Phils.
Where's the air horn? I'm going to add
We are going to the playoffs. I feel it. I just think it's going to be neck and neck throughout the season. And I you know what? I am saying that right now, there will not be a September collapse. There will not be a September collapse.
Is that because there was a summer collapse?
No, Andrew. Be positive. We are being positive right now.
I've been groomed for 10 years to not be positive about this team, so I struggle to do it.
I just think, obviously there was the collapse with Gabe Kapler. There was the collapse last year with Girardi. I don't think it happens this year. I think by the end of the season, we have full stadiums. We have the full might of the fan base behind this team. And I think the veteran skipper, Joe Girardi, gets this team to the playoffs.
Well, I love it. And I'm going to use that sound clip, and that's going to be our intro. And people are going to be hooked. And we're going to have at least 3 listeners. I'm calling it right now. And that does not include ourselves.
I'll call my aunt. So we'll get a 4th listener. I'll call my
aunt. Trust me, I would love that outcome. And if the Phillies make the playoffs, I'm going to be celebrating like there's no tomorrow. And then the next day, we will realize that in the first game of the wild card, or the 1-game wild card, will be the Phillies or Mets, depending on who or whatever the team. In this scenario, let's go with your scenario. The Phillies have to travel out to San Diego and play the Padres in 1 game. So you'd be looking at, if all things line up, it would be Nola versus Darvish.
I take Nola any day of the week. That matchup, I take any day of the week. I want to see playoff Bryce. I think Bryce is just going to come out swinging this year, literally and figuratively. I'm saying it right now, we are going to the playoffs.
So it feels like in any TV show, in any movie, in every podcast, there's a good guy and a bad guy. And you are already making yourself the good guy. And I guess I will be the bad guy because in that game, I love Nola. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't seen him show up in a clutch situation yet for me to say that I feel confident in that matchup. With those names that the Padres have that we talked about earlier, and Darvish starting it off, I would not feel confident going into a 1-game playoff. However, don't twist that to think I won't be celebrating that entire day and screaming my head off at every pitch. God, I hope you're right, but I disagree. And if we look at the rest of the playoffs, I think if we just want to throw out there who we kind of see going to the championship games, my
You
American.
want to do the wild card for the American
Sure,
League?
yeah. So the American League wild card. If we're in agreement that it's Twins Rays, then how do you see that game playing out?
I'm not in agreement with Twin Rays.
Okay.
I like. I don't think it's the Rays. I think it's the Twins who continue their bad luck in the playoffs because they lose to Mike Trout and the Los Angeles
Ooh.
Angels of Anaheim.
Yeah, I'm not hating that at all. I would love to see Mike Trout go on a little run. I mean, with all everything he's done, I think he, if anyone has earned a shot at the playoffs, I think it's him. And yeah, and I think if it's not the Angels and it is the Rays, if we're talking scenarios here, I agree. I think the Twins' bad luck just continues, and it would be the Rays moving on from there. So then if we're going to the division games, I'm just trying to spitball here and make sure we have something close to what. So it would be in that first division game for the American League, we'd be looking at the Yankees playing. You have the Angels winning. So Yankees, Angels, how do you see that series going?
It's the Yankees. Like I said, I think the Yankees just come out with a fury, and I think it lasts at least for a little bit in the playoffs. But it is the Yankees taking that series for me.
Yeah, I agree. Whoever the Yankees take on, I think the Yankees make it into the championship series. And then the other division game, again, if we're in agreement with how the divisions shake out, we'd be looking at the White Sox and the Astros. How would you see a best of 5 series going for those two teams?
This series, I think, just because I think the White Sox will show us a little more this year. They showed us, hints and pieces last year. I think it's going to be a close series. I do believe a lot in, having experience in the playoffs. So in that case, I'm going with the Houston Astros.
Oh, okay. So we'll disagree a little bit here because I do think the White Sox would pull that one off. I said it earlier. I like a lot of the moves they made, and I think they had a year to gel. One thing that I didn't mention earlier that I'm a little curious about is Tony La Russa taking over that team because, I mean, he's been out of the league for 10 years. I know he's hung around and done front office stuff or major league office stuff, but I don't know. There might be a little bit of a clash there. He's kind of old school, whereas they have a lot of young players. So, there might be some hoops to jump through there. But I do think that in that scenario, the White Sox would win. So then we look. Looking at the National League Division Series, you're going with Padres over Phillies in the wild card.
Mm-hmm. No, right. I'm going with Phillies over Padres.
Oh, what did I say?
You said Padres over Phillies.
Tried to trick you. so if the Phillies win that wild card game, then they would likely visit the Dodgers, assuming the Dodgers have the best record. So how do you see that series playing out?
That's going to be just a heartbreaking series. I think the city will be on a high of beating the Padres, a very talented team. But I think it's going to be, not enough firepower to beat the Dodgers. I do think we can take them to at least 6 games. I will say that right now. We will take them to 6 games, but we will lose that 6th game.
You were supposed to be the good guy. What happened?
I can only be the good guy for so long.
So the way I see it playing out, I think that it's Padres over the Mets in the wild card, and I think the Padres go visit the Dodgers, and I think the Padres beat the Dodgers. I think the Padres make it into the championship series to play the winner of the other series, which if we agree it's Braves and Cardinals, then that's the other series, Braves Cardinals, and to me, this is a no-brainer, but I'll let you pick.
It's to me, it is It's still the Braves. It's
Yeah.
still the Braves.
Mhm.
You know, just looking here, the Cardinals. They they at least made the Padres fight for it with Padres having to win 2-1, and that's that first wild card series. But I, it's the Braves. The Braves, they're going to do the same thing to St. Louis. I think they did to Miami last year, which is uh, dash all hope and do a clean sweep.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think the Braves in that game in that series would win it pretty handily. So now we're down to 4. Your American League Championship Series looks like the Yankees and the Astros. Where do you see that one shaking out?
It is going to be, and my friend Steve will love this. It's going to be the Bronx Bombers going on to the World Series.
Yeah, yeah. I my American League matchup, I think, is Yankees and White Sox. And as much as I'd like to see the White Sox pull through here, I have to agree with you. I see the Yankees. The Yankees moving on and getting to the World Series again. And then in the National League Championship Series, you have the Braves and the Dodgers. Little rematch from last year. Does it go differently, or do we get the Dodgers back in the World Series?
I think it goes slightly differently. Instead of a 7-game series, it's a 6-game series, but still the end result is the same. Dodgers in 6.
Okay. Okay. My National League Championship Series is the Padres and the Braves, and I have the Padres winning it. I just there's something about that team that I like a lot. A lot of young guys, a lot of veterans, and I just like the way they seem on paper. And they've had their manager Jace Tingler, I think is his name, has been there for a full year. Well, if you want to call last year a full year, and he may have even been there before that. I like the way they stack up, and I I I could see them pulling through and getting the World Series. So we have we both agree the Yankees in the World Series. You have Yankees Dodgers. I've got Yankees Padres. There's a chance we have it going the same way. What do you think of a World Series there?
I I hinted earlier by saying that at least this far, the Yankees will prevail. But I think they hit a roadblock, that roadblock being the best team in baseball from start to finish. The Los Angeles Dodgers go on to win. They will repeat as champions. It's such a good team. I love that squad. I love to hate that team too because they're so good, and you want to you like them, but you hate them as well. You want your team to be built like them. I think the Dodgers are built for the long haul. They're going to be in the discussion for many, many years to come, and they are going to be back-to-back champs.
So in my World Series, I have Yankees Padres. I think the Yankees win that. I couldn't tell you how many games I think it goes right now, but just the way things are stacked up right now, I see the Yankees winning it all. But I'm curious, going back to your Dodgers pick, let's say hypothetically they don't win here and they don't win another World Series with this current squad. Are you if you were a Dodgers fan, would you feel a little upset that your only title in that time came in a 60-game season? Do you feel it cheapens it, or would you look back and be okay with that?
I'd be distraught over it. I would be if it was the Phillies in that same position. I mean, last year, say it was the Phillies last year who won the World Series, I would still be very happy. But as years went by, I would feel less and less satisfied about that victory. So I mean, if I'm a Dodgers fan, there's two things about the Dodgers fans that if they don't win a World Series in the next couple of years, there's two things that will be true. They'll leave in the 4th inning, as they usually do, and they will be upset that they didn't win multiple titles.
Yeah, it would be a tough pill to swallow. Not only because with such a great roster and a great farm system that you only win one, but for it to come in a season like that, that'd be a tough pill to swallow. So, but I don't like the Dodgers, so I would not shed a tear if that played out that way. I think if we want to now officially really wrap this up, quickly go through kind of some of the end of year awards and where we think they shake out. American League Cy Young, I have Shane Bieber up there, but if the Yankees are really going to go on a tear, there is a case for Garrett Cole to be considered. Any opinions there?
Garrett Cole is a guy that I really don't care for. Just I don't know. He's just every team's got one, and for me, the Yankees have Garrett Cole.
Yeah.
Again, a guy who I would love to have on my team, but because he's a Yankee and because he's really good, he's a guy I don't really care for. I'm gonna go Bieber. I'm gonna go to Bieber to be your AL Cy Young.
And then in the National League, you're not going to get me off of the Jacob deGrom bandwagon until he gets injured or something devastating happens. Watching him pitch is it's special. It's something that I think years from now we'll be like, wow, that was a hell of a name we got to see for all those years.
Yeah, I mean, it is. He is a special talent. He's someone that is, if it's possible to be a little underrated, I think he's a little underrated even still.
Yeah.
But he is. This one we're going to agree on, because he's just so good, and I have a repeat of Cy Young in the AL with Bieber going back to back, which I don't know hasn't been done in a while. I'm trying to think the last time it happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
They go back to back. Trevor, that's the only thing that worries me with the Dodgers. I don't think Trevor is going to be as good, but I do think he'll be just as good enough to keep the best team in baseball rolling. And at the end of the day, it's going to be DeGrom with the Cy Young.
Yeah, he's just. Yeah, I mean, we said it, he's just a special talent. And by the way, I'm looking here to see the last back-to-back American League Cy Young winner. It was Pedro in 99 and 2000. And then just before him, Clemens did it in 97, 98. So,
that would be good company for Shane Bieber to be in.
Yeah. So, okay, the other two were American League MVP, and the easy pick is Mike Trout, and he is my pick. However, I wouldn't be surprised to see someone from the White Sox, a la Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone from that team break out and win it. But right now, I'll take the easy way out, and I'll pick Mike Trout.
Yeah, I mean, so as far as my AL MVP, it is going to be, I talked about this team a lot during the course of this show, because I think this team is going to be, have a raging comeback this year, and it's going to be led by their slugger, Aaron Judge.
Oh, okay.
The Yankees will get an MVP again. His name will be Aaron Judge. That is your 2021 AL MVP for me.
Yeah, no disagreement from me there. I could see that playing out exactly that way, especially if they're going to go on a tear like both of us seem to think. And the final one we'll talk about will be the National League MVP. I am expecting a repeat, and I think Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman takes it again. He's a special player down there in Atlanta.
Again, a player that, as a Phillies fan, I want to hate, but I've seen so many mic'd up clips and just behind the scenes stuff of how good of a guy he is, which is awesome to see. Honestly, the NL MVP race for me is super interesting. There's so many players, I think, who could be up for this. I would love for my favorite player in baseball, Tatis, to win the MVP. But I do not think so. I think the best team in baseball gets the MVP. as well as the World Series title, and it's because Mookie Betts will win that MVP.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And somehow his name did not come to mind when I was thinking of this, but yeah, 100% fair. I don't think any of the names we've brought up for these 4 awards. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I think Mookie has against him is that he has teammates who can definitely, fight for votes away from him.
Yeah.
It's much easier for, let's say, a guy like Juan Soto in Washington, he will win his share of MVPs. I firmly believe that. But I also don't think that I think what he has going for him is he doesn't have sort of that star power to that level around him in Washington to sort of take votes away from him.
Yeah.
So he would be also a good pick. But I think at the end of the day, Mookie gets the MVP.
Man, and just as you're saying that, I'm thinking of the East. I mean, the East has so many players that
Acuna, you have Lindor, you have Harper,
mm-hmm.
you have JT to some extent.
Yeah,
it's just so many people. Pete Alonso, you can go Conforto.
Mm-hmm.
There's more. You're now getting into dark horses with like Alonso and Conforto and even Romuto, but still, the guys who will get votes. Maybe not a lot, but it's the NL is, I believe, very well stacked, and it's going to be an interesting race.
Well, we are an hour closer to opening day now that we're at the end here. Any you want to guess a score for opening day?
Let's see here. I am going to guess that your Fightin' Phils will be victorious in a 6-3 win.
Excellent. I will agree that because they need something this year, and I didn't pick them to make the playoffs yet, but I think they take opening day, and I think they do it in style. I think let's go with a 12-5 win. I think I think they open the floodgates a little bit, and they get started hot.
Hey, we talked about it earlier. We love blowouts, so I would not turn down a blowout win on opening day.
Absolutely. All right, well, that'll do it here for whatever this is. I guess we'll call it a podcast, and I guess we'll
just a fun time with friends.
Yeah, and if we need to come up with a name at some point, we will. But right now, it's just a thing. So, Bob, thank you very much for doing this with me and allowing me to kind of just throw words at you, and you responded, which I think that's what they call a human conversation. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just listening to this, he's actually throwing words at me. He's writing them on pieces of paper, and he's balling them up, and he's throwing them at me the whole time we were here.
Virtually.
Yes, but, thank you for, including me in this. Hopefully we do it again.
Yeah, I would like to, and then when the Phillies end up disappointing us and we quit cold turkey, I think everyone will understand.
We can do a drunk episode. We just get drunk and just cry about them.
Well, everybody, hopefully you either you got tickets or you're going to be in attendance somehow or you're watching on TV. Hopefully everybody enjoys opening day, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks everyone for listening.